Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Sneaky Snake, and today we're going to be doing a comprehensive overview of the military orders sectorial. In this video, I'm going to be going over first why you should or maybe shouldn't play military orders. Then we're going to go into the profiles, and finally we're going to end with the fire teams. This is going to be a kind of one-stop shop for any new player who wants to get into military orders. I do a lot of other videos about like lists that I run or maybe particular small tweaks that happen to units. But this will give you a nice overall view of like where each profile fits in the faction and kind of how to use them and whatnot. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. And without further ado, let's get into it. So first off, I just want to give a big thanks to Chorus Belly and the playtesters. Chorus Belly obviously made the lore, they made the faction, and it's really awesome. And the playtesters, as well as Chorus Belly, recently updated the faction, and they really brought it into the forefront. They've made it a lot more competitively viable and just a lot more fun. And I'm very appreciative of that, and I know that a lot of the playtesters spent a lot of hours making sure that this faction was good when it got its update. So yeah, big thanks. So first off, let's go over why should you play MO and what are the strengths. So up first, we've got the Knights. If you're not playing MO for the Knights, I don't really know why you're playing MO because this is kind of the main draw of the faction is like you're playing all of these military orders. They're coming together in fire teams and rolling down the map and just shooting a bunch of people. So yeah, that's obviously the best reason to play military orders. They also have incredible sculpts just all around. Lots of capes, lots of swords. Those are the two big reasons why I got in the faction. I love the lore, love the knights, love the sculpts. Getting more into the gameplay aspects, this faction really excels at Spitfire range bands. They are a mid-range faction. If you want HMGs and snipers, this is not the faction for you because there's not a lot of options in those in kind of like the plus 24-inch range band, and the options that you do have are fine but not amazing. So yeah, if you want to play this sectoral, you should really be looking for like, okay, do I like to actually play with that mid-range kind of play style? Second thing is we have pretty solid AP. Not the best at killing tags or heavy infantry, but definitely doable. There is a good amount of AP within the faction that has been added in since N4. And yeah, I would say like nowadays we definitely can deal with tags and heavy infantry a lot better than we used to be able to. And that is a strength. The other thing is this faction has really good links now. You can build links around your Crosiers, your Hospitallers, your Santiagos, your Teutonics. Like all of the characters are linkable, and you're really just able to kind of build whatever like Build-A-Bear fire team you want to. And so yeah, for that reason, I really do like the sectorial just because there's so much list diversity, so much link diversity. So the other thing is we have really good defensive CC. That being said, somebody with martial arts 3 will come in and kill every single one of your knights, so you've been warned. But that being said, like, you can punch down really well with a lot of the knights because you're generally martial arts level 2 with pretty solid CC stats. And while somebody with martial arts level 3 will probably beat you, they might not want to take that risk all the time. So that is a nice thing about having generally like decent CC on a lot of your guys. But yeah, so it is kind of a strength. This faction is very much a medium and high-end heavy infantry faction. Again, if you don't like the knights, this might not be the sectorial for you because like that makes up like half the list is all of our characters, all of our, big chunky boys just running around with their Spitfires and whatnot. But that being said, like our medium and high-end infantry, heavy infantry are really good. And they have a lot to offer and they're really fun to play. So yeah, big strength of the faction. We have really, really tanky hackers, like the tankiest hackers in the entire game. The Knight of Justice is a great example of a just like powerhouse hacking unit that has BTS 9 and then you can slap a 10 bot on him, so he's BTS 12. And like he's not the most amazing offensive hacker because he's only whip 13, but like he is super hard to get rid of, and he's got 2 wounds. So yeah, Deferson is another great example, just like absolute alpha end of like very much an Uber hacker, and he's actually like a really good offensive hacker because he's got essentially burst 4 Trinity with whip 14 and pretty solid BTS. And so like yeah, your high end of hacking in this faction is actually really good. That being said, the low end is it's pretty good. It's like serviceable, but it's not like amazing. And so yeah, that's like a reason why you might want to play this faction is like if you want like really beefy hackers, like really good but very expensive network projection, this is the faction that you should play. Yeah, and that leads me into my next point. This faction has really good network projection. So the Knight of Justice, coming back to him, he has a pitcher that is shooting on 14s, which is kind of insane. He's the highest BS pitcher in the game. And that's really great. It's something that's really unique about the faction. Another thing is Trinitarians are mind layers, and they have deployable repeaters. So you can kind of just start turn 0 with a network already out. And yeah, that's a really, really good and solid strength of the faction that a lot of other factions don't have. And finally, our low end is relatively cost effective. I would say that there's not a lot of low end, and the low end generally tends to like kind of range between the 15 point to 25 point range, but it is generally very efficient, and it fills a lot of niches that you really need filled within the faction. And like this is especially true after the update. It just brought a lot of like support to your knights that was very much needed in the past. So why should you maybe not play MO? And these are kind of their weaknesses. So MO has pretty poor tag support. We have really good tags. The Montesa, the Tick Bling of Montesa and the Seraph are very, very good tags. That being said, there's only one engineer in the faction who's 17 points in Whip 12. So, not a steal. And just generally, like, tags are expensive. And, like, our knights are expensive. But, like, generally you're taking you're taking, like, 2 to 3 knights for the cost of one tag. And that's 2 to 3 orders more than you would have if you took the tag. So, like, yeah, like, the tags are really good, and they're certainly playable, especially now. But the problem is they're just not supported very well. So if you want to play, like, a lot of tags, if you really are into the tag gameplay, MO might not be the sectorial for you. We also have a relatively inefficient high end. That's not to say our high end is bad. Our high end, like, units are really good. They're just inefficient because they often don't do more than one thing. There are a couple of like kind of generalist profiles that can do a lot, but overall, like your heavy infantry is, they're bringing a tin bot, they're being a doctor, or they're bringing a gun, but they're not doing like all of those things at the same time in the same way that like a Shang-Chi is. This faction is pretty expensive and therefore it has relatively poor order generation. It's not shocking to me that most of my lists end up being like 14 models, 13 models, sometimes even, with like, maybe an NCO, but oftentimes probably not. And just kind of like, vibing with that and like understanding that's just who the faction is. That's how they play, and that's okay because I like the faction. And it's just a weakness, but it's a good weakness. Because it brings character to the entire sectorial. I already said they have pretty expensive units. The skirmishers in the faction are very one-dimensional. There's only two skirmisher options. You're either taking Dart or you're taking a Trinitarian. Dart obviously is a specialist and a gunfighter, so she doesn't really fall into that category. But the Trinitarians, are generally just like, I'm taking a Trinitarian to push a button, or I'm taking a Trinitarian to be a killer hacker, or I'm taking a Trinitarian to be a sniper. But like they don't really do more than that. There are a lot of skirmishers who have like a combi rifle and they can go on the offensive and shoot people, or they have really good CC, so they can kind of run into your opponent's deployment zone and like smack somebody in CC. And Trinitarians aren't that. They're button pushers, or they're like very niche specialists. And they're really good and they're very efficient, but they're just not like the backbone of the faction. They just really support the rest of the faction very well. Um, Under this, I have mediocre shooting. So obviously, this Pano, our shooting is never actually mediocre. But for Pano, the shooting is mediocre in the sense that like most of your guys are BS14 and that's it. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, but generally, like, you're not bringing a lot of visors, you're not bringing a lot of like BS Tac -3 or mimetism. This is not the faction for that. That's okay because we are the slam head into wall faction, and I love that. Um, Obviously, so after this recent update, there has been a lot more like visors and albedo and a little bit of mimetism that's been added to the faction, which is great. It's a very welcome change, but just overall, like you don't have something like a Kamau with like mimetism and MSV2 and like a sniper and all that jazz. But yeah, still pretty good at shooting. Just like they're not like the apex. You don't have any warbands. So, and this kind of goes into the next point of poor visibility control. So, you don't have any warbands. You don't have like super cheap guys that you can just throw into your opponent's deployment zone, kill a couple guys, and then die. Like that's not this faction. You don't have beast hunters. You don't have Yamabushis. You don't have like bounty hunters or whatever. And that's okay because you use your links for that. You use your super beefy Knights of Santiago combat jumpers to just jump in, blow a bunch of people up, and be a menace. And that's fine because it's what makes this faction super cool. Um, they have poor visibility control. You have two disco baller options. Both of them are sitting at more than 22 points, I think. And it's like obviously they're there and you can take them, and so that's a good thing. But they're just not super cheap, and MO is not a cheap faction. So yeah, every time you're going above like a 15-point threshold, you have to be questioning why you're doing that and really determining like, is this something I really should be doing with my list, or is this something I really need? You have limited DZ diver options, so things like bears and dogs and warbands, Yamabushis, all that jazz. We have a limited amount of those. That being said, after our big hacking update, we're much better at that. Like Montesas have kind of been unlocked because if you can pitch with your Knight of Justice and fry their hackers, well, you don't have to worry about their Morants because yeah, nobody cares about like a repeater on the rooftop if there's no hacker behind it. Um, and so that's kind of helped the faction. And you have Crusader bros that can like drop in and punch down and CC, and like Knights of Santiago with their combat jumpers, super fast. They can run around and shotgun people. So it's not that you don't have any DZ diver options. It's just that you're a little bit more limited in that aspect. And then finally, your bottom end is pretty poor. You get like AVA1, Fugazi, then your next cheapest regular order is going to be Mulebot, and then it's going to be like a Tech B, and then it shoots up to 11 points to Crociers. And so, it's like, it's not like we don't have any bottom end. It's just, there's not a lot there, which is, again, fine. It's like a defining faction weakness that helps to kind of flesh out the faction to make it more unique and make it balanced. So, yeah, those are all the weaknesses. The next thing I want to do is just have a brief pause to talk about Spitfire options. So this is the Spitfire faction. If you don't like Spitfires, again, like maybe you should consider why you're playing the faction. But like MO is just unrivaled in the mid-range gunfighting and especially in options. Like if you want a hacker with a Spitfire, or an Albedo Spitfire, or an MSV Spitfire, or a BS-15 Spitfire, or a BS Attack -3 Spitfire, like whatever type of like 24-inch range band weapon you want, you can have it. It's all there. And that's what makes it super, super fun. I put a funny joke at the bottom. Like the non-Pano mind just cannot comprehend the nuance of like what each of these different guns does for the faction. Because like you have to really understand like what is this specific Spitfire bringing to my list to really be able to appreciate the nuance and the time that was put into like balancing the Spitfires and making sure that each one has its own nuance, has its own place within the faction. So that's my little tangent right there. Um, and finally, in this section, we're just gonna look briefly at like a good MO list and then a bad MO list. So both of these lists are viable and they can be played and they're competitive, but one of them plays into the faction's strengths and the other one doesn't. So for the bad MO list example, you're playing a Seraph, and then you're bringing like a Harris of a Bold Tier Curator and Order Sergeant, and then you're bringing like a core of Cuirassiers with the Paramedic and the Mine Layer Multi Sniper, MSV2 HMG, Paramedic Cuirassier, an Order Sergeant Hacker, and a Knight Commander, right? And it's like, you're bringing these extra Cuirassiers, you're just really filling out those like light infantry links, and then you've got like a Trinitarian KHD with the Tactical Awareness Pathfinder and a Mulebot and then a Warcore. And, it's like you have literally zero heavy infantry in this list. And I've seen people play lists like this before. And it's not a bad list. I mean, you could totally win games with this. Like, it's just more of a question of like, why are you playing MO if you're just going to be bringing a bunch of like light and medium infantry and then a tag? Like, there are Pano factions that are so much better at doing that. And again, like I'm not your boss, I can't tell you what to do. But it's just like why would you play a heavy infantry faction if you're not going to like take any heavy infantry? On the flip side, we have a list with a Knight of Justice hacker with the Knight Hospitaller and then a Knight of Santiago KHD. Right, that's a Harris team. You have 3 heavy infantry. They can roll up into the midfield. They can hack people. They can shoot. Every single one of those guys is super lethal. They've got 2 wounds. They're tanky. All the jazz. And then the next link, we've got a Knight of Santiago Spitfire with a Teutonic specialist and then a Tinbot, right? And these guys, it's the same thing. They're going to run to the midfield. They're going to shoot people. And they're going to dive into CC and smack people with their CC. And then you've got like a duo with the Cuirassier and the Knight Commander, a Tech B, a Fugazi, Trinitarian Multi-Sniper, Mine Layer Trinitarian, and then a bunch of cheap orders at the end. And like the one on the left is a much better example of like an MO list that really plays into the faction's strength, where you're bringing a lot of heavy infantry. You're really utilizing all of the support around those heavy infantry, right? Like the Trinitarian Mine Layer with the deployable repeater. You have a couple of hackers in this list that are really going to be able to utilize that. Whereas like if you have an Order Sergeant with a mine laying Trinitarian deployable repeater, your opponent's just gonna like walk an Uber hacker in and just fry your brains because they're like, they're efficient, cheap hackers, but that's what they are. They're cheap hackers, and they'll just die super easily. So yeah, this is just a brief overview of like, look, if you want to play with like tags and light infantry, that's great. You can definitely play MO that way, but it's not the strength of the faction. The strength of the faction is you have really good knights, and they're supported really well by the rest of the faction. So now let's get into profiles. First up, we have the backbone of the faction, the Cuirassiers. I wouldn't have said that before the update, but afterwards, it's definitely true. So your Cuirassiers are your Pano light infantry, just normal stat line like BS 12, Fizz 10, Whip 12, Armor 1, 0 BTS, blah, blah, blah. The only thing of note really is they're religious. So like your sniper is a much better ARO than like a Fusilier sniper because like the Fusilier sniper is going to take one fight, and if he doesn't just get immediately shocked off the board, he's not going to be able to stand up for another fight because he's going to fail his whip and go down. So yeah, whereas religious like helps them stay up for that. there's not like a lot to talk about here, other than that the sniper with the mine layer is a really nice profile, because he is giving you deployment zone defense with the EM mine, which is very scary for almost every single unit in the game. Um, I hate Morats, but whatever. And then he also is bringing like an HMG MSV2, a really cheap HMG with MSV2. Sure, he's only BS12, but like, I mean, come on, it's an HMG for 24 points with MSV2. Like, it's really nice, and it has really good link options. So it's a really solid take. And then like the paramedic, you have a bunch of knights with super high fizz. Paramedics are really nice in this faction because you shoot somebody with your medikit and they get up on like a 14. So yeah, big. Those are kind of the highlight profiles of the Crociers. The next one we're going to be going over is Constantinos. So he is good for Sensor and Disco Baller, and he is just a little bit pricey. If you look at his stat, like he's got a pretty solid stat block, you know, BS12, PH12, Whip 13, Arm 2. He's only one wound. He is bringing MSV1 and min -3, which is nice. Just ignore its CC attack -3. And then he's bringing Sensor and Specialist, so like, you know, he's offering a good amount to like whatever link he enters into. The hidden deployment infiltration profile, I mean, it's interesting, I guess, but it's like 26 points. I don't know. Like, I guess that's a Flamen Spear, but yeah. Maybe if he still had the assault pistol, I'd be more like happy about that profile. But the FTO one is definitely the one that's more interesting in my opinion. He's got a deactivator, so he can remove repeaters for like your knights and stuff. He also has a disco baller, so obviously he's contributing to the visibility control. He's bringing a template with the boarding pistol, which is fine. Decharges and being a character helps him do classifieds. The multi-rifle is not bad. And then especially paired with like MSV1 and min -3. Yeah, it's just like a good, he's like a decent gunfire. He's just like 23 points, so he's like a little bit expensive. And, you know, we'll get onto different MSV pieces later, but, you know, you'll get a Blackfriar HRL who's 1 point cheaper, and it's like, well, is this guy really worth the points? I don't know. So moving on, our only engineer in the faction, the Curator, um, normal mech engineer type stat block, except, you know, whip 12. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say about this guy. He's just expensive, like 17 points per whip 12. Engineer is a little bit rough. And I think the only thing of note is like the turret actually is kind of worth it even after the turret but or nerf. It's 20 points, but it is a armed marksman rifle turret. So if you're like moving into the midfield in like a bulletier Harris, and you just throw the armed turret down in the middle of the map, like honestly, it can stall the game a lot. So that's kind of a nice benefit of the curator is that the armed turret he's bringing is actually really good. But yeah, not much else to say. Now we're getting to the more interesting profiles. So order sergeants. In my opinion, the best way to describe these guys is like expensive Phoenix, basically. Um, you know, you're paying like for the base profile, it's 13 points for combi rifle, nano pulsar, and then like a Fennec stat line essentially. You know, they're yeah, I mean they have some standout profiles for sure. The neurocynetics on the HRL, as a side note, is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's good. Like 22 points is kind of a hefty price to be paying. Maybe if it was on like the 15-point profile, it would be a lot more like, whoa, you know, maybe this is really good. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. That's all I have to say really. Um, I'd say the two standout profiles though are the hacker with the pitcher and the HRL. So the HRL is 15 points for a heavy rocket launcher, which you can't really go wrong with that. If you have the Swick to spare, honestly, it's not bad. He can kind of watch your deployment zone, watch those crossbands, make sure there's no like war band sneaking through your lines. And he's only 15 points, and he has really good link options. And then the hacker, this is like the star of the show, if you will. He's bringing you a Whip 13 BTS 3 hacking device with a pitcher and a nanopulsar. And honestly, he's really nice. The hacker can link into a lot of different links with some good purity bonuses. And honestly, I didn't even realize they put a picture on this profile at first, but when I did, I was like, wow, this is awesome. So yeah, really solid unit, just a cheap, efficient hacker. Um, please do not take the base profile order sergeant. I'm sorry, it's just like simply bad. Like you're paying 13 points for like essentially just a cuirassier. I don't know. It's just like, what's the point? You know? Yeah, just don't take the base profile. The Oxbot profiles, um, they exist. I've literally never taken one before. Um, maybe the hacker is. Oh wait, no, it doesn't even have a picture. So never mind. Yeah, I just don't even know why you take these guys. Anyway, moving on. Um, Raven Eye Officer. This guy's just a solid deployment defender. He has Mine Layer. He's got EM mines or cyber mines. Both the profiles are kind of interesting. I used to only ever take the cyber mine profile, and it actually worked really well in my favor because I was playing an IGL and I went against a Morat player, and I was like, "Hey, cyber mines are useful here. EM mines are not." But yeah, he's a specialist. He has an Emerat and he has a deactivator. I can tell you, I would say like once every okay, if I'm taking the Raven Eye, once every other game, I generally will end up running the Raven Eye forward and deactivating like a repeater. Because yeah, deactivator is giving you like a +6 on your Whip 13, so you're deactivating on 19s. You're gonna get spotlit. You're probably gonna get GML. It's whatever. You're just sacrificing this guy to clear a repeater so that your knights can then just like run forward. But yeah, overall, just a really solid unit who just adds a lot of defensive capability to the faction. Next, we've got Satya. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on her because she's going to be disappearing after ITS 17. But yeah, she's really solid. She's a Joan order generator because she's an irregular and she's cheap. She is a more expensive but more capable war core. You know, like you're going to be paying three more points for it, but you have deployment, therefore deployment +4, climb plus booty, specialist operative, flash pulse, blah blah blah, EM grenades, all that jazz. So yeah, you're just like an upgraded war core, and honestly, if you have 3 points to spare, she's not a bad like upgrade from the war core. So yeah, solid profile. Next one is the Tech B. Tech B is a cheap order. She's giving you a deactivator and she's giving you Tapcom. There's not really much else to say about the Tech B because honestly, most of the time I'm putting her in a list, it's because she's 9 points and she's just cheap. The deployable repeater is nice. Like there are games where I put it down if I have like an extra order. And again, like here's another deactivator. Deactivators are really useful because they help to clear repeaters and they clear the way for your knights to be able to like run through your own deployment zone and get to your opponent's deployment zone. Sorry, and she's also a specialist, which is sometimes very useful. Like, I'll put my Tech B in group 2 with, like a couple of Trinitarians and like a Fugazi or something. And, every once in a while, if I like lose my Trinitarians or I don't have the orders to spend on like the Knights, I'll just run her up and push a button. She'll die, but it's okay. Like, she did her job and it was just a couple of orders, but it's nice to just have that option. And she has a Gizmo kit. War cores. Here's another Joan order generator. 3 points, free regular order with Joan. I'll take it. This guy's also an amazing DZ defender with the 360 visor. Flash pulses got a side grade in the change from N4 to N5 because now they affect everybody. They're worse because they don't have the DA ammo, but even people with total immunity, immunity BTS, all that jazz, like you can't get rid of the flash pulse, and it's really nice, and it's made war cores a lot more like annoying to deal with because there's always kind of like what if they crit me and then I fail and then I like lost the ability to use my attack for the rest of this round. So they're just really good for that. And then the 360 visor is also really nice because they help to protect against deployment zone drop troops. Next up, we've got our Crusader brethren. These are cheap combat jumpers. They're really good at punching down with their martial arts level 2 and CC21 and the EMCCW. Honestly, these guys are great at like just super jumping into a tag and just smacking it with the EMCCW. I've actually had a couple games where my opponent had a what are they called? It was like the Eugene equivalent of a clipper, so a guided missile launcher, and I just jumped this guy in, and I didn't want to get GML'd, so I just ran him into CC, and I killed the guided missile, and he killed me back. But it's like that was worth it because it's like I would just want to get rid of this guy, and so they can kind of be really good assassin pieces in that context. I would say their two standout profiles are the two boarding shotgun ones. The Disco Baller is really great because he's your second visibility controller within the faction. So just like being able to disco ball on 13 or on 16s, I guess, BS 13, whatever, it's just really nice. And he's bringing D charges, so he can do classifieds and they're vet troops. So yeah. And then the FO is also really good because he's a button pusher. Both of them have like kind of a unique place in a list. I would say Crusader Brethren honestly are really worth the points. I don't take them often, but when I do, they're always really solid. Um, the Spitfire and the multi rifle are interesting. They're a little bit outcompeted within the faction. Like the Spitfire is kind of like, why am I taking a BS-13 Spitfire when I've got a billion knights that kind of do the same thing? The multi rifle, I like the multi rifle a little bit more just because he's bringing like a light flamethrower plus one burst. So if he runs into CC with a tag, I mean, dropping two flame like light flamethrowers on the tag is really scary. They're either gonna have to dodge or, you know, it's just really risky to just drop a chain rifle on these guys. So for that reason, I really like it. And then multi rifles are also just relatively solid guns. Next, we've got our Infirmer. He is kind of your trauma doc replacement, except like vastly superior. So the Infirmer is 6'2". He has like mediocre CC, but it's good enough to like fight a Fusilier. And he's BS-13 with Whip 13, Armor 2, BTS 3, 60 move. I think I already said that. And then he's also got a boarding pistol. And then, you're paying 17 points for the doctor, which really is not, or for the boarding shotgun, which is really not bad for a doctor within MO. And considering like almost everything you're taking has wounds, yeah, this guy is a great option. He's just, yeah, super cheap and he's got really good linkability. So I love taking the Infirmer. It's kind of a sometimes piece, like sometimes you really want it, sometimes you don't really need it. So just kind of very match dependent. The Knight Commander is basically an auto take now. I think in every single list I've built after the update, I've had a Knight Commander. I would say there's two profiles that are takeable, and then the last one not so much. So the +1 LT order is really good if you have like NCO guys. So if you're taking the Knight of Holy Sepulchre or the Seraphs, both of those guys have NCO, and they're really going to be benefiting from the Lieutenant +1 order. Just as a unit, so he got a price decrease, which is really nice. And I think now, just as a unit, he's kind of like not bad. I mean, martial arts level 2 with CC20 and Hollow Mask means that it's entirely possible somebody enters CC with him that doesn't want to, and you're just going to be able to blow their brains out with your martial arts. And the other thing is like the light shotgun with the +1 burst, like burst 4 light shotgun on turn 3. Honestly, it's not bad. So yeah, generally, just a really solid profile now. The other standout profile is the Chain of Command. This is the profile I take the most because MO has a lot of really, really good active lieutenants that are oftentimes like saving you slick or saving you points in some cases. And yeah, just like having that extra lieutenant redundancy is really, really nice. The normal LT, I think, is just generally not worth it because, like, I'll give you a great example, okay? I really like the Knight of Santiago lieutenant. Um, and so there's kind of two scenarios. I either don't take the Knight of Santiago Lieutenant and I end up taking the Knight Commander Lieutenant, or I take the Knight Commander Chain of Command and then I take the Knight of Santiago Lieutenant. And the having the Knight of Santiago be your lieutenant is just much better because if he, loses his link or if he's just kind of left in the open, you can just use his lieutenant order on him to like shoot somebody or run into CC or do something else. And it's just generally a lot more useful. Whereas if that lieutenant order is on the Knight Commander and you don't have any NCO, then it's just going to be wasted. So for that reason, I just really prefer to take the Chain of Command Knight Commander. Finally, before we get to the heavy infantry, we have the Black Friar. This is a staple of the faction. The Black Friar is a really, really good gun option. She's bringing MSV2 and Albedo -6 with BS 13, decent armor, decent BTS, only one wound but has combat instinct. And then for her gun options, you're either bringing the HRL or the Thunderbolt. She's just a really nice support piece for the faction. And yeah, like there's just like a lot of like if your opponent has an MSV2 gunfighter that you're having a hard time getting through, your Black Friar is going to be able to punch through it super easily. There is an active debate between like whether or not it's better to take the Thunderbolt or the HRL. I personally like the Thunderbolt a lot more, mainly because it's 2 more points, yes, but it is swickless and it's an extra burst while being less lethal. That being said, taking the other Blackfriar, the Blackfriar HRL for the opposite reason is totally viable. Like if you want more lethality with a little bit more variance, and like if you're going to win the gunfight, then the HRL is definitely much better in that regard. And not to mention that the HRL is a lot scarier on reactive, while the Thunderbolt really isn't. Whatever you do, do not take the multi-rifle profile. It is terrible. I'm just telling you right now, like 27 points is way too expensive. There are much better things that you could be spending your points on. So please don't take it. That's all I have to say. I'm gonna take a sip really quick. All right, so Knight of Holy Sepulchre. Okay, the lore for these guys, I just want to say, super cool. They're super awesome. Real life lore is great, and Infinity lore is just it's spectacular. But anyway, they have Hauler Projector. They're 6'2 movers, BS 14, really good armor, excellent BTS 9. They're Warhorse. They've got BS attack SR -1. They have really good defensive CC with the Natural Born Warrior, and they're stealth and religious and surprise attack. Just a really incredible stat block. They are essentially unhackable. Like BTS 9 with Warhorse means that you can only ever spotlight or try to immobilize B them, and trying to immobilize B them is super hard with BTS 9. And then like you can spotlight GML them, that's totally viable. But yeah, they're just really hard to hack. They are one of few HMGs within the faction, and so that's really nice. And it's also an AP HMG with SR -1. So like, yeah, he's basically like a mini tag. He's much cheaper than your 2 tag options. He's not bringing, tactical awareness, and he is losing a wound, but he is tankier when it comes to like he's a lot less hackable, and also he has NCO, which is really nice. Which gets me to my second point. Yay, NCO profile. He synergizes really well if you're bringing the Knight Commander +1 Lieutenant Order, so that's really good to know. He is your only MSV Knight, so yeah, that's something to know. I think the multi-marksman rifle +1 burst has gotten a lot more interesting now that they swapped Chain of Command for multi-spectral visor level 1. Yeah, I really want to try this guy out, honestly. Like I'm really excited. He looks really interesting, and yeah, I think he honestly has a lot more of a unique place within the faction, especially for his multi-marksman rifle. Yeah, he's just bringing kind of like a very unique Spitfire that isn't offered on any of the other pieces within the game. Um, so heavy infantry is Father Gabriel Deferson. He's a really good lieutenant option because he's a whip 14 lieutenant. Um, Other things to note is he is absolutely an uber hacker, just top top tier, best in class hacker. I honestly um, hmm, off the top of my head, the only hacker I can really think of that's better is like either the Stigmata or the Anathematic, and that's like basically it. Because he's tanky with BTS 6 and Vita 2, he gets pretty easy Tinbot access, and he has Trinity plus 1 SD with a hacking device, which is crazy. Um, he has martial arts level 3, which is of note because there's not a lot of that in the faction. And As a side note, I think that both options are very viable. Um, the Spitfire is the generalist profile where it's like, I want a gun and I want a hacker, and I want them both in the same platform. That's totally fair. You can totally take that profile if that's what you want. The multi rifle, on the other hand, it's saving you Swick and 3 points. You're gaining like a light flamethrower and a more close range type weapon. I think I generally actually prefer this profile, and we'll get into why a little bit later. But basically, he's cheaper. He costs less Swick, and I think there's a better general point piece that you can be taking instead of Father Gabriel. But both of them are definitely viable. And I just think the multi rifle slots into a lot of links better because they're all like, yes, he is a Spitfire, but he's only a Spitfire. Like, he's not bringing any AP. He's not bringing uh, any mods to the fire team. So I just don't really know that I love the Spitfire option, but it's definitely viable, and I've taken it before, and it does work. So. Next up, we've got the bread and butter heavy infantry of the faction, and that is the Knight Hospitallers. Side note, I really like these guys' sculpts. They're super great. But they're your anchor heavy infantry. They are the ones that you're going to be forming a lot of your heavier fire teams around. Um, just to go on a little tangent here. So they're 4/4 move with decent CC, BS 14, PH 14, Whip 13, Arm 4, BTS 6, Vita 2, etc. They are frenzy, they have stealth, and they're religious. So these guys are often compared to orcs because they have essentially the same stat block. There's only two minor differences, being obviously they're CC specialists, but they have BTS 6 rather than BTS 3, and they are 4/4 move rather than 6/2 move. And a lot of people complain about the 4/4 move and the frenzy, but I think honestly it's totally fine. I have no problem having boring heavy infantry in military orders because every faction needs boring heavy infantry, and personally I love the boring heavy infantry the most. Like, they are very underrated. You can use them in ways that people don't expect, and they will oftentimes do a lot more for you than you think that they will. And as far as frenzy goes, like, look, honestly, frenzy is not that big of a deal. People like to say that frenzy ruins the unit because after you do a wound, you don't get to claim cover anymore. But honestly, if you've done a wound with a Hospitaller Knight, you've probably already made enough progress into the game where being frenzied doesn't really matter. Like, you're a BS 14 super heavy or well armored heavy infantry. So yeah, it just doesn't really play into the profile that much. In fact, frenzy, honestly, I find it's a lot more of a benefit because you do a wound first turn, by second turn a lot of your opponents big guns are already dead, and you're just gonna be able to use that impetuous order to just run up the board and shoot people, and you're just getting free movement out of it. So I don't know, I really like the frenzy rule, but um anyway, that's enough of this side tangent. So this is one of your few HMGs within the faction, and they can there's a duo I'll share later that I really like. But yeah, just a really solid HMG, BS14, heavy machine gun. That's it. But it's just nice. They have a very solid stat block, as I said. I'd say their three standout profiles are going to be the HMG, Doctor, and Tinbot. The HMG obviously is giving you that long range firepower. The Tinbot is providing you with a very linkable Tinbot. Um, and the Doctor is just a doctor. Like he's going to be healing your knights, and he's really good at it. So yeah, I really like all the profiles for that reason. The emitter is a very interesting profile. It's a little hard to fit in. I like that the emitter doesn't trigger frenzy, so that's kind of cool. Like you can use it on the active turn. It's going to be like burst 3 BS14, which is totally viable. And yeah, like he could just throw out the emitter shot, try to brick a tag. Very lethal weapon, and it's PS6. But it's just a little bit hard to fit because it's not giving you the 10 bot. It's not a doctor, and it's not really quite as like punchy as a heavy machine gun. But I do think it's interesting. I want to try it out at some point. The boarding shotgun contender profile with forward deployment, like, why? I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Some people really seem to like this profile. I have no idea why. Contenders are not very good. It's a PS7 T2, which is cool, but it's also only going out to 24 inches. And this guy is 32 points, and he's forward deployment. Like, plus, I don't know. It's not good. Like, somebody with a tag is just gonna stand up the tag and kill him in one shot, like, super easily. Not really a very good profile. And it's just super expensive, so, yeah. Moving on. Joan of Arc, nope. Don't take V1. She's not good. Don't justify it. She's just not good. She's really slow. She has a bad gun. Just why? I had hope that maybe they would change this profile in the update, but they didn't. It's totally fine. It doesn't really matter. She exists, but she's not amazing. Um, yeah, like genuinely, if you're bringing this profile, you should be questioning why. She did. I am noticing now that I think she got. Did she get cheaper? No, nope. She's still more expensive. So again, just like why? Why are you even taking this guy? If she had like an HMG or something, or maybe like an HRL, but like with like armor 6 and immunity AP or something, like something to really make you feel like, oh, this is the tankier Joan. I could totally see like a reason to take her, but it's like you're paying 40 what yeah 47 points for a multi rifle that isn't even like a specialist. And like, yeah, she's giving you inspiring leadership and tactical awareness, but like, why not just take Joan V2? I don't know. She could be changed to be better for sure. Like, there's something here, but this is kind of just the problem whenever you have two characters, or like two profiles of the same character. It was the same thing with Sheshkin, and it was the same thing with Achilles back in N4. It's just one of them is always going to be better than the other one. So yeah, just I spent too much time already talking about her, but don't take her. Here's the Joan that you should be taking. This is Joan V2. So she's amazing because she has inspiring leadership. She has discount Swick on the AP Spitfire. She's also an AP Spitfire, which is really great. She's bringing tactical awareness. She has really high BS with BS15. She's really fast with 6-2 movement. She dodges. Yeah, she gets plus 2-inch dodge, which is really great. Um, she's good at ML. I don't really know what I meant by that. Um, anyway, she like every single profile has its place. Like, oh, sorry, she has good martial arts. I'm dumb. Yeah, she's a really good martial artist with martial arts level 3 and explosive CCW. So yeah, she's bringing a lot to the table there. Do you know she is frenzy? Frenzy doesn't really matter much on the hospitalers because they're cheap. They're cheap guys who like are kind of just they're gonna be shooting one thing and then the rest of the game they're just gonna like be trying to be a thorn in your opponent's side. Joan is a little bit different because she's 45 points. and she is going to be your lieutenant in 90% of cases, and she's bringing you tactical awareness and the lieutenant order and inspiring leadership. So it's like she's bringing a lot to the table. So her being frenzied is a little bit more of an issue, but it's not like a total deal breaker. Like she's still totally fine. Um, yeah. Anyway, so going back to every single profile has its place here. Like if you want to spend the extra points, like having an extra command token is totally viable, and honestly, it's really nice. Strategic deployment is also a really great option. If you don't want to take an HMG, that's totally fine. Strategic deployment really helps to like mitigate your opponent's ability to just DZ lock you. So yeah, I really like all of the options for that reason. Um, I think the LT is basically always the better option because of the Knight Commander, because you have that cheap like chain of command that you can be taking. That being said, there's maybe a reason to take the chain of command. I don't know. The fact that they made her like not a specialist chain of command kind of stinks because I think if she was a specialist, there actually maybe would be a reason to take the chain of command option. But yeah, because it's not a specialist, I don't know if it's really worth it. All right, next character, Kyle Hawkins. He got a big glow up in the recent change. There's a lot of interesting things that went on with him. So I think he always was 6'2", but I can't remember. Um, but he's really good at martial arts because he's got martial arts level 3. He is the only modded multi marksman rifle you have slash Spitfire. He's bringing BS attack -3, which is really great. Makes him unique because no other multi marksman or Spitfire is doing that in the faction. He's also really cheap. Like 32 points for BS attack -3 multi marksman rifle is really nice. He's a good point man. He's also a specialist, so like you can kind of slap him with like a non-specialist hospitaller 10 bot, and yeah, it's just going to be working well for you. The boarding shotgun is interesting. He is cheap. I would have to think about like what the use case for him might be. I don't really think it's that good or generally that viable because there's better like close assault options within the faction. But maybe there's something there. I'd have to do a think about it. All right, I'm gonna take another sip really quick. So these guys are the star of the show. So they had a huge glow up in the update, and I am super happy about it because the Knights of Justice are also one of my favorite models. So yeah, they are super tanky with armor 5 and BTS 9. Like it's super hard to hack these guys. They're fast with their 6'2". They've got BS 14, like all of the standard Pano heavy infantry stat block. Their CC is, yeah, it exists. This is martial arts level 2 with 23. Like it can do stuff, but it's not like amazing. They have stealth, which is great. You've got some standout profiles here. The missile launcher is spectacular. +1 SD and very easily linked means that you're basically shooting 3 explosive AP shots, which is just crazy. Yeah, like this guy is an amazing tag killer, and he's also an amazing arrow. The only downside, obviously, is that he's really expensive. Um, I don't know how viable he is in military orders, just because military orders bottom line is kind of hard to come by. They're like more expensive, whereas like Svarheim has a lot like they've got a lot more low end troops that they can take to support the Knight of Justice a lot better. But that being said, I think he's still a really good profile and very takeable. The Knight of Justice hacker is the other very standout profile, and I'm gonna talk a bunch about him. But yeah, this profile is just amazing. The Forward Observer and the Spitfire ones, they just kind of got left in the dust. Like The forward observer honestly is not that bad, but it's kind of just like a why are you taking this when for 4 more points you get so much more capability? And then for the Spitfire, you have better Spitfires in the faction for like around that 42 to 45 point range. So yeah, just not really worth it in my opinion. Okay, so now it's time to goon about the hacker. So he is a point man. He has AP. He is PS6. He is the tankiest hacker in the game, and he has BS14 pitchers. Like, what more could you possibly want? This guy is very much a like generalist profile, and he is very linkable. Like, he has really good link options, and just like yeah, I mean, I foresee the Knight of Justice being like specifically the hacker being like a very much a staple in the faction. He's going to be running a lot of lists, and he's going to be just like such a playmaker. He doesn't feel broken by any stretch because again, it's like 45 points, which is like it's just really expensive. That's almost a sixth of your list right there. Um, and yeah, I mean, he is really spectacular. But again, like he is a gunfighter, but he's not the best gunfighter. But he is a really good gunfighter, and he's a hacker, but he's not the best hacker because he's only whip 13 and he doesn't have Trinity. But he is a hacker, so he can do it, right? Like he's not the best in anything except for being like the tankiest, but he is able to do everything, and that's just really nice. And also the classified potential of being an elite troop with hacking and decharges. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, just an amazing profile. I'm really excited to use him more. Up next, we have the Knights of Montesa on foot. These guys are really cheap. They get +1 SD. They're relatively tanky. Yeah, like they have decent martial arts with the level 2 and CC23, BS13 with mimetism, and impetuous. But honestly, the impetuous limited cover rule in combination with the mimetism is really nice because it basically just means they're like normal, quote unquote, like heavy infantry, but they're getting that like that impetuous order, so that's really nice. The +1 special dice is kind of like that's the big part of their kit that's really playing into a lot of things. So like the paramedic, which I consider to be probably their most standout profile, the FTO one that is going to be shooting in a link 3 medikit shots into whoever it is that he's shooting. So it's like guaranteed you're gonna land one, and hopefully he doesn't kill your knight. But it just makes the paramedic really good. On top of the fact that the boarding shotgun now in a link is going to be like burst 2 with +2 special dice, which is really great. And then the Blitzen is burst 3 on reactive, which is just crazy. So it's like, yeah, there's just kind of like a lot of like potential here. Um, as a side note, I think the Red Fury Knight of Montesa is actually really interesting. Um, he's only 4/4 moves, so he's a little bit slow. If he was 6/2, maybe like I would be even more excited about this profile. But it's really fun. He's super, super well costed profile as is. But yeah, like the Red Fury with the forward deployment, honestly, super interesting because it's a burst 5 Spitfire that you're not having to link. And it's impetuous, so you're getting like that free order. Just honestly, yeah, really, really solid piece right there. But yeah, just a very interesting profile overall. Next, we're going to be talking about the motorized version of these guys. These guys are very fast. They're very tanky for a bike. They're one of very few two wounded motorcycles in the game. And they're very good at DZ diving. So these are going to be one of your like DZ diver profiles. Um, yeah, not like a whole lot to say. They're just really solid. They used to have a big weakness in MO and really all of the Pano factions they're in, where they're a little bit hard to use because they're hackable. So if your opponent has like a repeater network, you're just not really going to be able to get through to your opponent. But now that MO is actually a good hacking faction, that's not really as much of a concern anymore. And I think these guys are actually going to be like way, way better now. So the two standout profiles I see on this on the motorized Montesas are the paramedic and Red Fury. So the paramedic is a really good specialist, very fast. He can just dart around the board and shoot your guys with his medikit, which is great. Not to mention that he's a specialist. The Red Fury, on the other hand, is not a specialist, but a pretty solid gun with mimetism and being able to claim partial cover and whatnot. Or sorry, limited cover. And yeah, just like a really solid gun and pretty cheap, like only 29 points in one swig for essentially a Spitfire is not bad. So yeah, I think both of those profiles are really valid. The multi-rifle is not bad. The boarding shotgun, I have taken the boarding shotgun before. It's not my preferred choice, but sometimes you just gotta save 2 points, and that's the option. So there you go. Padre Inquisitor Mendoza. This guy is awesome. Absolutely spectacular model, and the profile is also amazing. So he's your only mimetic HI. You're kind of starting to notice a theme here, by the way, that like when we come across something special, it's generally unique. Like you only have one MSV HI, you only have one mimetic HI, you only have one tactical awareness HI. So yeah, anyway, side tangent. He is very much an Inquisitor because he likes fire. So he's going to be burning all the heretics. But yeah, like he's moving 6-2. He's got Mimetism -3, or sorry, -6, as I said. He's got Berserk with Martial Arts level 2, and CC Sack continuous damage, which is crazy. Like, if he's Berserking into you, you might be cooked. And he, like, if, like, he's just, like, a absolutely insane, like, close quarters gunfighter. Because he also has a +1 damage multi-rifle. And yeah, I guess I could just talk about like the fact that he can just win games by himself. I've played him maybe twice, I think. And in one game I got second and I lost because he just got like, I mean my opponent just targeted him, or they set up like enough repeaters to where I couldn't even move him out of the playing zone because he doesn't have stealth. But the other game I played, I just ran up the board. I tanked a like hacking save at one point, and then I just proceeded to kill like everything in my opponent's back line. And that's just like kind of who Mendoza is. He is not cheap. He's super expensive, but he's just so lethal that he can just kill half of your opponent's list in like one turn. I think the most standout profile is definitely the FTO Tinbot. Even if you didn't link him, simply having that Tinbot is really, really nice. And it adds like a lot to the profile as is. But he is linkable. And being able to go into a link to provide that Tinbot while also being like probably the best close range gunfighter in the faction is just nuts. So yeah, I love this guy. He's kind of like a cracked up version of Wolfgang. That's kind of the way I see him, is like if Wolfgang took steroids and he's like, I'm gonna murder everything even better than I already can. So yeah. Yeah, moving on to the Knights of Santiago. These are my favorite models in MO. They're the best model in MO objectively. You can't disagree with me because I'm the MO master. So yeah, but anyway, I just love these guys. They're really not even that insane, like of profiles. Like they're pretty balanced, but I just like their aesthetic so much that I don't know. I use them all the time. They have pretty insane classified potential though. Each and every one of them is going to be a specialist. They're going to be having decharges, and they have a 360 visor. And yeah, just some really nice classified potentials there. They are pretty cheap for a heavy infantry. Like you're looking at the KHD, who's 31 points, has a KHD multi rifle and a firewall, and they're like decent close combat specialists. I think the decharge nerf kind of hurt them a lot because before they were always like pretty mid at CC, but like beforehand they had decharges, so it's like, yeah, you could fight them, but if you got decharged in the face, you're gonna die. So it made them a little bit more like yeah, scary in that regard. Just so you know, the BTS 3 is definitely a weak point of the unit. Um, like there's just no getting around that. I have had many a game where my opponent pitches at me with a killer hacker and just kills my United Santiago KHD in one order with Trinity, and it's just the way it is. Yeah, I mean they didn't get a buff to their BTS, which is totally fine, but it's just something you should know that they do have a low amount of BTS. Um, I do wish that they did have BTS 6 because it'd make them much better in my opinion. But yeah. Um, that being said, they're still really cheap, still really good at heavy infantry. All of the profiles are very viable. I put an asterisk there because the combat jumper without the killer hacking device, um, that's the only one that's not really viable because for 2 more points, you can just throw a killer hacking device on him. You'll be able to Cybermask, you'll be able to Trinity other hackers. So why not pay those 2 extra points, you know? But yeah, like the combat jumper is a really good DZ diver. Um, the Spitfire is giving you a Spitfire with BS14, 6-2 move, and EM grenades with decharges and a boarding pistol. So it's like, yeah, just a lot of kit there. Not to mention that they're also specialists. And you know the KHD is going to be very linkable. He's bringing you a tin bot and a killer hacking device. So yeah, just overall really solid models. Um, I think this is the last heavy infantry. We've got the Teutonic Knights. So Teutonic Knights are really cheap HI. They're kind of like your warband HI. Yeah, they're 6-2 movers. You know, martial arts level 2 with CC22. Really good at dodging on 17s. Um, they're like not super tanky, obviously arm 3, BTS 3. But yeah, they're just really cheap. They're really good link fillers. It's pretty easy to just throw 2 of these guys in a Harris team and then like have like some sort of point man like the Knight of Santiago or the Knight of Justice. And yeah, just you're really able to do a lot with this with these guys. They're really good at clearing mines. Now that TAC is like borked, yeah, like you can really utilize these guys well because they'll be able to run through minefields because they're really fast, and they'll just be able to dodge through everything, which is kind of nice. So they got their a couple standout profiles here. So the Tin Bot is really nice because he's a cheap Tin Bot that yeah, is adding a lot of hacking defense to your heavy infantry. The specialist is good because he's an SMG and he's a specialist for only 1 more point. So yeah, just a good take. And then the missile launcher got a little bit of a glow up. They gave him BS attack -3, which means that he is effectively um, like his impetuous is effectively negated. And yeah, that's really good because it just means like he's a viable arrow unit. He's 28 points, but yeah, just like having that option because he is legitimately an option is really nice, and he's very tanky. At least for like an arrow piece. Also, the Zapper got added, and I really like that. It's very interesting. It gives him like a really lethal template weapon, so I'm a big fan of the Zapper. Um, I'm just gonna have a quick moment of silence for the Spitfire. Unfortunately, the quote unquote buff they gave the Spitfire is giving it an X visor. That's just not what he needed. Yeah, I just don't like. Look, the Spitfire having NCO is really great because NCO is a good skill to have in military orders. The problem is that he is a BS13 Spitfire who cannot claim cover, and he will lose very often to a flash pulse bot, and that's just not really acceptable, especially when you're paying like 29 points for that guy. So unfortunately, just not very good. The lieutenant and the normal light shotgun Panzerfaust Teutonic were they well, let's talk about the lieutenant. So the lieutenant used to be a very common pick, and I just don't really think he's going to be a common pick anymore because you have much better active lieutenants, and now that you have chain of command, you can take those active lieutenants and still have like safety and protection from lost lieutenant. And then as far as the 18-point base profile goes, yeah, he's solid. He's just not really bringing anything to a list other than like adding +1 special dice, which is totally fine. Just not my choice, because for 1 more point you can get a lot more utility out of the Teutonic Knight. How could I forget the Crux Knight? So the Crux Knight is an amazing gunfighter. He's extremely versatile. He's kind of like your Knight of Santiago, but on crack. That's like kind of the comparison I make, because he is an AP version of the Spitfire, with the multi-marksman rifle, PS equals 5 and +1 SD. He's bringing Albedo. He is tankier because he got BTS 6 and Arm 5. Same BS, same movement. He is a little bit more. He's a little bit better in CC because he's bringing Natural Born Warrior and Martial Arts level 2. So yeah, I mean CC 25 is nothing to scoff at, because it's like an automatic CC 25. So yeah, really nice profile. He's also a specialist with stealth. Obviously the biggest thing here, well, the two biggest ones are Albedo -6 and then BS attack +1 SD. These two things are just really giving you like a lot of capability. That +1 SD obviously is allowing you to be really good on active and also really good on reactive. And then the Albedo obviously is giving you a heavy infantry that can gunfight against like MSV pieces like really well, very effectively. I think there are two standout profiles here. It's going to be the MMR FTO and then the MMR strat deployment. So the MMR base FTO profile, he's just your cheapest option. He's a wild card, so he has got a lot of links. And yeah, he's just really good. Like, honestly, if you want just a straight gun, this guy is super good for that. As far as the strat deployment one goes, again, he's also another great option. He's 4 more points, but you are paying for the ability to, yeah, just kind of have that option to forward deploy by 4 inches, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, he has a lot of capability there. The Spitfire option, just don't do it. It's just there's just no point. Like the MMR is just so much better. Because it's like it's a PS5 AP weapon, and that's actually kind of scary. That can punch through tags. It obviously will take you more time than some other AP weapons, but it can definitely be done. The forward deployment one with forward deployment 8 inches, that one is interesting, because you're just getting like a lot of you're getting that free 8 inches. Yeah, I mean you can make it work. Personally, I would just rather have him be in a link team, but if you want to take him solo, that's definitely an option. The two hidden deployment options are also interesting. I don't think they're actually good, but I haven't tested them out, so I could just be smoking. The armed turret one looks really interesting. Um, yeah, I mean it'd be kind of funny to just like walk up a Crux Knight and just throw an armed turret. Obviously, I like you're only bringing an APSMG, but it is a burst 4 APSMG, so it's not nothing. But yeah, overall, really excellent. All right, so moving into the tags, we've got the Ceres. Great model. The pose is not as great in my opinion, obviously, but anyway, that doesn't matter. The Ceres is really fast. He has super jump +3 inches, so you're able to move 9 and then 4, which just makes this guy like crazy fast. Um, just as like a brief side note, I think in a lot of other factions, the Seraph would be incredibly broken. In MO, however, because tags are not supported very well, the Seraph is very balanced, and honestly, like Seraph is still a very good tag. it's just not like as game breaking as a lot of people thought it would be because again, like military just doesn't have the best tag support. But yeah, that's just a quick side note. So Seraphs is bringing NCO, which is great. Synergizes really well with the Knight Commander. It also has really solid defensive CC. Nobody really like even if you're really good at CC, you don't really want to go into martial arts with a tag who has armor 7, 3 wounds, CC 23 with martial arts level 1, and an explosive PS4 weapon. Like because if you lose, you die. Like there, aside from a bear, and obviously like dogs don't really want to fight a Ceres because they don't have super great CC to begin with. But like, yeah, this guy will just like totally blow somebody's brains out with his massive sword. So, um, yeah, both profiles I think are very good. There's a reason and like kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's a use case for both. The AP Spitfire, I think I prefer less because you already have a lot of Spitfires in the faction. I think the multi HMG is offering you something a bit more unique, and I think the multi HMG also supports the super jumping part of the Seraphs a lot more because like whenever you can take those longer range fights, you really are able to just carelessly move throughout the entire map and just be able to like shoot people from wherever. So yeah, I prefer the HMG, but the AP Spitty is also really good, and you're getting an Oxbot, which is pretty cool. And then disclaimer at the bottom. So Tick Bling, same story. MO has trouble supporting tags, blah blah, whatever. So the Tick Bling is a really really good tag. A cheaper tag for only 68 points. You're getting an HMG with Mimetism, BS15, blah blah blah. Obviously, no AP, which does kind of stink because if you're paying 68 points for a tag, especially in a faction that's already kind of expensive, it is it's a little bit hard to kind of like swallow that pill. Um, but yeah, the tick is still super good. Climbing plus obviously makes the tick very mobile. So yeah, you can get a lot of work done with the tick bomb. Yeah, I think it's totally viable. I think so. The Seraph is 4 points more at the base cost. So the tick is just simply a better shooter because it has that mimetism, but also it's not bringing AP. So it's a give or take. CC attack -3, just ignore that. It doesn't exist. Anyway, moving on. So now we're on to the bots. This part's going to go pretty fast. So Volunteers are really great. They're just a mimetic shooter. If you've played any MO sectorial, you know what these guys are about. Yeah, they're just a robot. They can be healed well. They're a repeater. And the Spitfire is the only real pick. Heavy shotgun, like why? You can spend 19 points on much better things. But the Spitfire is a really nice piece, and it can be upgraded with the Evo bot. Has really nice linkability. Not much else to say, but it is just a nice mimetic gunfighter. The Clipper, it used to not be like it used to be such a meme, but now it's actually kind of viable. If you're leaning into like a lot of hacking, like you're taking two regular hackers and like a KHD with a pitcher, honestly, it's probably worth it to take the Clipper. Like you might as well. And yeah, it's just a GML. Like there's not a lot to say about this other than the fact that it's got a missile, and it can be really useful in MO now, considering you have two pretty solid pitcher platforms. The Fugazi, just start every list with the Fugazi because you're going to be taking one. They're still like really solid though. 7 points for a regular order who's bringing a flash pulse, repeater, mimetism -3, just good all around. I really love these guys for defending the DZ. They help to stop drop troops from just dropping in for free. And they're super cheap, and they're one of those like really low cost orders that you can bring in MO. But unfortunately, you only get one. But because you only get one, you're always taking it. So that's just the way it is. Mule bots, they just keep getting better within military orders. The baggage is just really nice for your disposables. So like you might be taking a Blitzen Cuirassier, or you might be taking a Panzerfaust Teutonic Knight, or you've got pitchers. on your Knights of Justice or your Order Sergeants. Like there's a lot of circumstances in which you can get a lot of good value out of the baggage. So for that reason, I think they're definitely kind of a solid pick. Um, don't take two because they are really big, and you want to make sure you have adequate space in your deployment zone. And obviously, they're not really bringing any sort of weapon. So, yeah. Um, the Evo is really nice for combat jumpers. It's really nice for your bullet tiers. And sometimes you can just throw uh, fairy dust on all of your heavy infantry, and that's not a bad use of the Evo either. So I do actually really like the Evo as well, especially because baggage isn't bad in the faction, and then being able to add that capability with the Evo hacking device is also nice. Palbots, they're oh, that's a typo, but I'm an hour and 20 minutes in, so I'm not going to re-record this. Um, they are goofed to take with the curator for extra range. They're adding definitely like a lot of value on the infirmer, so you can heal your tag that went down or got isolated, or you can remove a state from your heavy infantry. So honestly, really solid pick if you're bringing a curator. Even though the curator does have good linkability, so it's kind of a coin flip on like what you want out of the curator. And then he's maybe takeable with the infirmer. I've never done it before, but I could maybe see like a use case for this. Also, like maybe even the Night Hospitaller Doctor. Like you link him with the Palbot, you run him up the order, or sorry, run him up the board to do classifieds or to heal up some of your knights that went down. So it could be good in that regard as well. But Palbots have a place within the faction. I wouldn't say they're something that you take often, but sometimes it is nice to have them. Pathfinders, these guys are really great, cheap button pushers. They have triangulated fire, tactical awareness, sensor, detector. Yeah, they're just your standard FO bots. The tactical awareness is really nice because honestly, they can do a lot of things. They can deactivate stuff for your heavy infantry. Obviously, they'll probably get isolated in the process, but that's okay. They are repeaters, so they're adding like that extra network projection for your hackers. The sensor is really nice because you can sniff out all of those mines and like camo markers. The triangulated fire is interesting. I played a couple of games against people who use triangulated fire a lot, and it really made me be like, huh, this actually is pretty solid skill. And then finally, they're just a forward observer, very fast, and they can push buttons that maybe your Trinitarians might not be able to reach, or that your Knights didn't have a chance to get to. So they're just really, really solid for that. All right, Peacemakers. These guys are midfield repeaters. They are pretty solid midfield defenders. They're relatively cheap, uh, by considering what they're bringing, and they have a Mind Layer. They have a really fat base because they're still at four, so they can be really hard to fit on a lot of tables. That's why I don't really take them very often. Um, yeah, like they're interesting because they have the Mind Layer option now, which I think is honestly the only viable one. And the Oxbot is really scary with that heavy flamethrower. Like, there's not a lot of people who just want to run through and dodge that. Um, do not take two of these guys. Like, I can guarantee you, if you take two, you won't be able to find a spot for the second one, and he's just gonna get shot. So just like you've been warned. But they are takeable. They're not terrible. They are pretty cheap, and I think there's a place for peacemakers. I don't personally like them, but I know the Aussie people really like them for some reason. So there you go. Everybody has their own opinion. Um, Sierras, these guys are your old reliables. They're just reliable TR bots. I mean, there's not much to say about them. I think in MO of all of the like Pano sectorials, they have a lot more of a place because your arrows tend to be like more expensive, or they might want to be used for something else. The only one I can think of as an exception is like the Trinitarian multi sniper or the Curator multi sniper, like or sorry, the Corsair multi sniper. Those guys are just meant to be stood up and die. But like, yeah, yeah, I just really like Sierras. I really liked them when I was first starting out, and I really like them today. They're just good DZ defenders. They have 360 visors, so they can protect against your enemies' drop troopers. They're very recoverable. They're pretty cheap for what they're bringing, and there are better things in MO. You definitely do have better reaction pieces nowadays, but they're not terrible. So yeah, I like Sierras, and I think they're totally valuable. So now onto our skirmishers. We've got one of two, and this is Dart. So Dart has incredible capability. She is probably another unit that can like totally carry games on her back. They just randomly buffed her in this like recent patch. I have no idea why, because she was already really good. But for 35 points, you're getting essentially a two wound skirmisher. And actually, this is kind of a side note. It's actually better as a skirmisher to be NWI because you don't want to leave behind a body. You want to force your opponent to kill you off the board because if you're off the board, they can't do classifieds on you. So that's just a side note. But yeah, so she's NWI. She has decoy now. She's climbing plus, camouflage, mimetism -3, MSV1, BS13, PH13, Whip 13, solid BTS, relatively low armor, but that's okay. She's a specialist, she has stealth, just like every single skill in the sum. She is forward deployment +8, not infiltration, but it's good enough. So for her loadouts, you can either take the EM grenade one with the APSMG and viral attack bow +1 SD, or you can take the shock mine one. They gave her a mine layer option recently, which is pretty crazy. Um, yeah, I really like the mine layer option. I think it's really interesting, especially when you've got the decoy, you're putting out three different camo tokens. That's just a lot for your opponent to have to pay attention to. So yeah, I really like that. And then the grenade also is really great. You have pretty high fizz, so you can just chuck EM grenades at a tag and say haha. Also, the viral attack bow being +1 SD is kind of crazy because that makes her an incredibly annoying piece to get rid of. Like, yeah, like I could not imagine. I mean, she was really annoying to get rid of before. Like, I had a game where Dart wasted five of my opponent's orders, killed like a Dokkaebi and a Chujak, and was still alive at the end of it. And it's just so funny. I felt so bad for him, but like that's just who she is. Like sometimes she can just pull off stuff like that. And then some games she just gets spotlight kind of missile. So, it's a give and take. But yeah, she's expensive. 35 points isn't cheap, but she's super reliable. So yeah, really, really great piece. Definitely takeable. There's a lot of games that you can, or a lot of lists that you can totally slip her into. And finally, our last profile is the Trinitarians. Trinitarians are very, very efficiently costed. They are, I think, the cheapest in deployment for an observer in the game. Every single profile has its place. They are very dedicated to either button pushing or mine laying, with a couple of exceptions. But yeah, they're just like, they're not gunfighters. Like, outside the multi sniper, they just don't have very good guns. And that's okay because you don't really need them to do that. That's not their job. Your knights are there to gunfight. Your Trinitarians are here to be really efficient button pushers, and they do it very well. Um, so some really standout profiles. The deployable repeater mine layer is just excellent. Like now that you have these like super good Uber hackers with pitchers and whatnot, like having that turn zero ability to just have network projection is just incredible. I think the mine layer deployable repeater is definitely going to be one of the most common profiles you see nowadays. My personal favorite profile is the multi sniper. I really love camouflaged arrow units because I came from Varuna. They were kind of my main faction in N4. And so, like, having the ability to put somebody on like a -12 on their active turn just brings a big smile to my face. Um, so, yeah, I just love making people suffer, honestly. But yeah, I really like the multi sniper for an ARO, It's probably not the best arrow anymore in MO, but I still take it because I just really like it and I know how to use them. And I've gotten a lot of really good value out of them. So yeah, I really like them. And just as a side note, they're 25 points and 1.5 swig. So that means that they're 1 point more than a Sierra HMG. Whether or not you think that's worth the cost is really up to you. I know, like, at least for me, you know, an ARO is there to waste orders. It's not there to kill your opponent, even though they can do that sometimes. But like, yeah, you just want to be wasting orders, and a Trinitarian in the back of a deployment zone is going to waste a lot of orders because your opponent's either going to have to smoke it or they're going to have to try to gunfight on like -9s or whatever. They might have a MSV2 piece, but if they do, then don't reveal them, or just be smart about when you do reveal them. But yeah, really, really great profile. All right, so now on to the fire team. I'm gonna take a sip really quick. All right, so these are the fire. So I'm gonna go over the like what types of fire teams you can take, and then we're gonna go over the wild cards, and then the very specific like different types of fire teams. So you can take one duo, one Harris, and one core. In case somebody new is watching this, I just want to go over some fire team basics really quick. As a general rule, you want to have one point man. So a point man is anybody with like a burst 3 or higher weapon that extends out to further to 24 inches or further. And it's somebody who has higher BS. And the reason why you want one of these guys is because when you're moving up the board, you're going to face resistance. There's going to be some sort of like arrow that you're probably going to have to deal with. So always having the capability to gunfight is good. You always want one specialist because specialists will push buttons on the way. They'll be able to do classifieds, etc. They're the ones that are going to actually be winning you the game. And then, for things like doctors, like they can also heal your units and just support your fire team well that way. And then if you're running an HI team, you want a tin bot. HI are very vulnerable to hacking. You always want to make sure that you have a tin bot on top of them so that they're not getting, just killed in hacking. Those are just some fire team basics that everybody should know just in case somebody new is watching. So with that in mind, as I said, you have unlimited duos, one Harris, one core. To briefly go over the wildcard options, every single wildcard has like meaningful value to whatever link that they join. So the Knight of Justice, we talked about how good their profiles are earlier, but they can join and they count as Knight Hospitallers, which is really great. Knights of Montesa, the FTO is bringing like a really, really capable paramedic, which is great. The Crux Knight is obviously a really excellent gunfighter. Brother Constantinos, he's giving you a disco baller and like a decent gunfighter. DeFerson is obviously a uber hacker, and he can also be a point man with his Spitfire if needed, and he's also a lieutenant, and he counts as a Knight Hospitaller. And then Hawkins is just an excellent, very cost-effective Spitfire range band weapon, and he doesn't cost any swig, so yeah, he's just really good in that regard. Mendoza is another tin bot that you can slot in to any of your links, which is really nice, and he's just an excellent close-range gunfighter. So first up, we've got our military orders fire teams. This is kind of your bread and butter. This is going to be the backbone of the faction. So as you can see, you can either Harris core, and very, very importantly, you can duo these guys. And I cannot express to you how important that duo capability is, because there are a lot of really cracked duos that you can make with Crociers or Knights of Santiago. Not as much Teutonic Knights. Well, actually, yeah, even Teutonic Knights can make some pretty crazy duos. But yeah, those three duo options are just excellent. As far as the this is just bringing you a lot of defensive line infantry links. It's very good Knight Commander support, especially because he counts as a Crocier, and your cheap. This is kind of your cheap knight fire team. So like your Santiagos and your Teutonics, they're your cheapest knights, and yeah, they're just really offering a lot in terms of like what they can bring to any fire team that they can join. So just to go over it really quick, they can the military orders fire teams can be formed around either Crosiers, Teutonics, or Knight of Santiago's. Order sergeants can join if they have the FTO tag as Crosiers. Knight commander can join as Crosiers. Black Friars can join, curators can join, and infirmers, even though those last three don't have any counts as. To go over the light infantry fire teams, the first one is one of my personal favorites. It's a Crosier mine layer multi-sniper with a Knight Commander chain of command. This is a really good defensive link. You're getting +1 special dice on your multi-sniper because the Knight Commander counts as Crosier. So it's just a cheap defense that, yeah, it's just going to force your opponent to have some sort of gun to deal with it. Also, the EM mine is just being instantly mine laid, so that's really nice because it's just automatically adding value to your deployment zone defense. The Crosier HMG with the Order Sergeant Hacker is also a link that I really like. The Crosier MSV2 HMG is just such a cost-effective piece. Yes, it is only BS12, but you put in a pure duo like this, he's going to be burst 5. He's got MSV2, so he can fight any of those mimetic gunfighters that you need to get rid of. And then also he can drag along a Order Sergeant. And the reason why it's really nice, like this duo is super nice, is because you're able to push into the midfield with that Order Sergeant. You can make really good use of the pitcher, and just, yeah, really set up a really good defensive network. And it's 42 points. Like, that's so cheap. So, yeah, just so much capability in such a cheap duo. Next up, we have a core. This is going to be the Crosier Mine Layer Sniper with the Crosier MSV2 HMG, the Order Sergeant Hacker, the Paramedic Crosier, and then finally the Knight Commander. So this is kind of an amalgamation of the first two duos, and then adding a Crosier Paramedic on top of it. It's allowing you to have a Sixth Sense Hacker, which is great. All of your Crosiers are now +1 or +1 BS, and they're getting +1 SD. And on top of that, it's just a very capable core that can actually do a lot. I don't know how much I love it because cores are a little bit like dead in N5, but for a core, it's pretty cheap and it can do a lot and it adds a lot of value to the list. So yeah, I really like that core. And then finally, we're just going to be going over some more like heavy infantry focused military orders fire teams. So first we have a Harris team with a Knight of Justice Hacker with the multi-marksman rifle, and then 2 Teutonics, the specialist operative, and then the tin bot guy. And this one is great because, yeah, it's just like the 2 Teutonics are giving the Knight of Justice a +1 SD. They're supporting him well. They're giving him a tin bot, adding an extra specialist operative in case the Knight of Justice go down. And then as you're pushing up the board with the Knight of Justice, you know, once you've beaten back all of their arrows, you can then just let the Teutonics go, let them go ham, run into people, mince them in, close combat, all that jazz. The next Harris team I have is a Knight of Santiago FTO with the Spitfire with a Knight of Montesa Paramedic, and then a Santiago KHD. This is just a pretty cheap link team that has a I think it can almost do every single classified objective in the game. It has to be able to almost do like every single one. Yeah, so you've got your point man with the Spitfire. You have a specialist in the form of, well, they're all specialists, but the paramedic is just a nice doctor to have. He can doctor up your Santiagos. And then the KHD is kind of there to just use your repeater networks to blast other hackers and try to kill them. So yeah, just a really nice Harris. It's relatively cheap for only 84 points, and you can kind of just throw them up the board and just go ham. Yeah, it's just a really nice durable link. And then finally we have the Teutonic the Teutonic Knight missile launcher with a Teutonic Knight firewall, and then a Knight of Montesa paramedic. So this is more of a defensive Harris team. That being said, it could totally push up into the middle of the table if need be. But yeah, like the Teutonic Knight is just gonna be he's gonna be getting the base attack -3 on people. He's also a really scary arrow. He's getting +1 special dice from his brother, the Teutonic Knight. And then also the paramedic is just a great option here because he'll be able to shoot the Teutonic missile launcher if he goes down and heal him back up since he's a PH-14. So yeah, really great fire team options. There's kind of a lot that you can do with them. All of these slot really nicely into a link, or sorry, into a list. So yeah, a lot of capability here. Next, we've got the Order Sergeant's fire teams. These are definitely much more like utility type fire teams, and I like this specific fire team option because yeah, you can like I think this Harris like team can really create a lot of options for your knights because it will cover a lot of bases that they might not be able to. So just to go over it briefly, you can either form a Harris or duo. It has to be formed around Order Sergeant. So you can either take a Curator, an Infirmer, a Knight of Santiago FTO, a Blackfriar, or a Boltier. Yeah, so I've got two links down here. The first one is a Harris team that's more wound focused. So it's going to be a Blackfriar Thunderbolt with an Infirmer, and then finally an Order Sergeant hacker with the pitcher. So this is just a good link because it's giving you that MSV2 from the Blackfriar and also the Albedo. So he's going to be really good at fighting mimetic troops or MSV troops. And it's going to be a burst 4 weapon because the Infirmer counts as an Order Sergeant. And then the Infirmer can heal the Blackfriar if he goes down. And then as the link pushes up, the Order Sergeant will be able to pitch and really extend that repeater range. And then very much kind of a similar case with the second link. It's going to be a Boltier with a Curator with the armed turret marksman rifle. And then finally an Order Sergeant with the hacking device and the pitcher. And so it's very much kind of the same thing. Like you're going to be pushing up the table with these guys. You have the Curator to support the Spitfire Boltier. He can also drop a turret when you get to the midfield and kind of set up an arrow that way. And then the Order Sergeant, once again, can push up the midfield with the two of them, the Boltier and the Curator, and then be able to pitch into or near your opponent's deployment zone. So yeah, it's just really extending the effectiveness of the Order Sergeant hacker while also providing you with some sort of modded gun that you might not be able to come by if you were just taking a bunch of knights. So finally, we get to the Crusader fire teams. This is the hell yeah fire team because yeah, this is why you're playing MO. Like, come on, be honest with yourself. You're bringing the Crusader fire teams because all of these knights are freaking cool. So this particular fire team is formed around the Knight Hospitallers. It can either be a Harris, core, or duo. And I think there's a really good option for all for each case. Like you can make a good duo or Harris or core. There are a lot of characters with Hospitaller keywords, including the Knight of Justice, who also counts as a Hospitaller. And you can just create whatever link you need for whatever needs you have. Like so first, like we have the Knight of Justice hacker with a Knight Hospitaller tin bot. And this is just a great link because it's providing you with a burst 2 or a +1 SD pitcher, essentially a burst 4 multi-marksman rifle. And yeah, like it's really extending the effectiveness and the hacking of your Knight of Justice. It's really allowing him to be like elevated to a much better piece. The second link is one of my personal favorites, which is a Knight Hospitaller HMG duoed with a Knight Hospitaller Doctor. This is a great link because you're getting a Burst 5 HMG for 62 points. Yes, it is only a BS14 baseline HMG, but that can do plenty for you. Most Armor 6 tags aren't really willing to just like take that in the face multiple orders in a row. And so yeah, it's just a nice link and it's really cheap. It's only 62 points. So yeah, just a lot of effectiveness there. And then obviously we just had to include like the coolest core ever, which is 5 Hospitallers. So it's going to be Joan Lieutenant with the AP Spitty, DeFerson with his multi-rifle, a Knight Hospitaller Doctor, a Knight Hospitaller Tinbot, and then finally a Knight of Justice Missile Launcher. So here you're getting Joan with her AP Spitfire. She's going to be your point man. DeFerson is going to be your Uber hacker. Nobody wants to hack into DeFerson, and he's going to make sure of that. Your doctor is going to be able to heal up anybody that goes down. The Hospitaller with the firewall, obviously providing that firewall, so all of your HI will be much tankier against hacking. And then finally, the Knight of Justice with his missile launcher. He's BS-15, burst 3 missile launcher on reactive. Like, you're either smoking that or you're dying. So yeah, just an incredible ARO piece, especially when he's in a level 5 core. Like, it's nuts. So yeah, it's 190 points. It's 3 slick. It's kind of a meme, but also it's really freaking cool. So if any of you guys run this, let me know. I'd be super curious to know how it goes. So for our last fire teams, we have the Velox fire teams. This is very similar to like an armored fire team, except you don't actually get to link any of your uh, any of your tags. Which kind of a bummer, honestly, because it'd be kind of cool to be able to link the tick, but whatever. It's not incredibly versatile, and it's mainly focused on attacking into your opponent. As you'll see, like all these guys are fast attackers. I don't really see I don't see myself using a lot or this duo a lot, but there is actually one duo that I did think of that was really cool, and it's Joan LT with Mendoza. This fire team cannot do any objectives. That being said, it will blow through everything in your opponent's deployment zone. Like this link is just crazy strong in terms of like offensive capability. Um, yeah, like honestly, yeah, it would be super cool to just like I just want to try this out just to see like how much damage I could do because honestly, yeah, like these two, it's such a powerhouse. Like Mendoza will just burn through everything with his multi rifle. If you come across a tag, you've got so many options. You can either blow him up with an explosive weapon or burn him to a crisp with a continuous damage DACC weapon. So yeah, just an excellent, excellent duo. And Mendoza's bringing that firewall minus 3, which is just really great for Joan because it's just giving her that extra hacking protection. So we're here at the end of the video. If you've made it this long, that's crazy. But yeah, so just some final thoughts on the faction. This is my favorite Infinity faction. If they deleted this faction from the game, I would just straight up quit because, yeah, I just love MO. I just love them so much. I played Varuna in N5 for like 1 week while I was waiting for the update to come out, and I don't really expect myself to play Varuna super often now that the update is out, and now that's really good. MO is a very fairly balanced faction, in my opinion, with very key strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's a good thing because if you're really broken, then the game is boring. Like you just bring an avatar, you kill everything, and you can't go into Lost Lieutenant because combined army. No hate, no actually no hate against the combined army players. But yeah, I think this is just a very balanced faction. There's a lot of expensive stuff. Your bottom end isn't very good, and that's the way that it should be. And I'm really happy that the developers and the playtesters didn't make MO broken because I don't want them to be broken. I want them to be competitive and viable, and I think they're at a very, very good spot right now. Yeah, as I said, you have a lot of expensive units. You should try them out in different lists. Just don't do it all at once. You can be a psycho like me and run like 10 heavy infantry in one list, something you can do. It's not going to be competitive, but it'll be fun. So yeah, just learn to love the limitations of the factions because honestly, there are a lot of limitations, but that's okay. It's kind of what makes it unique. It's what makes it fun. Um, there's less limitations now, which I'm very happy about because I think like being the playtesters in Corvus Belli balanced MO in a way that they are now not like the best at like hacking faction, but they are very good at hacking. And but it's a very high like cost of entry to do so, right? Like for nomads, okay, like I'll give you a great example, okay. Vanilla nomads is probably worse at hacking than military orders in terms of like pure like hacking potential. That being said, the cost of entry in vanilla nomads is much lower. You throw in Jazz and two Morans and a guided missile, and you have so much hacking potential for a very cheap price point. And I think that's just kind of like the difference between military orders and some other factions that are good at hacking. But I'm really glad that that's kind of a limitation that they have. Don't fall into the mono building trap that a lot of people will try to get you to fall into. There's a lot of diversity in MO. I already went over like the amazing nuance between each Spitfire option that you can take in military orders. And yeah, that nuance is really great because it means that there's really like no I guess like ultimate like piece in military orders. It's kind of like, well, this guy is good in this instance, or this guy is really good in this instance. And I know that was very intentional from what some of the playtesters were saying, and I think that they nailed it on the head. Like, it does feel like there's a lot of list diversity in MO, and you should just learn to have a lot of fun with it and take a lot of the interesting units. Um, every single army takes a lot of practice, so just be patient with yourself. It's going to take a couple of games for you to get used to MO. The only reason I'm honestly really good with MO is just because it's the only faction I play. So, like, I don't claim to know a lot about other armies, but I know a lot about MO. And I practiced a lot with them, and I really love them. And I know that if you also practice with them, you'll love them too. And finally, most important thing is to just have fun and take what's interesting to you. If Mendoza is the coolest guy, you think his model is super cool, and you're like, I'm gonna take Mendoza in every single list. It's totally fine because it's a war game and it's about having fun, right? And so if he's super cool and if that model super like really appeals to you, then just take him in every single list and have fun with it. But like if you want to play military orders as a like light infantry supporting a tag faction, it's not the strength of the faction, but you can totally do that if you like love the Seraph. And he's not. I mean, he's not in any other faction. Then yeah, just take the Seraph a lot. Like that's totally up to you. It's just about having fun. So yeah, just enjoy the faction. That's really all I have to you. We're at 1 hour 53 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed my very long rambling session. So yeah, if you really liked the video, let me know. Comment something. I don't know. But yeah, with that being said, get out there, win games with military orders, and yeah, have fun. So I'll see y'all later. Bye.